Okay, so I got the video off from WLB Art that showed you how to draw this, and she showed you how to do the ticking marks. I do the ticking marks as well, but I also do the ticking marks for the height of them too, just to help me make sure that I want it to fill up the area of the paper as it fills up the area on the picture, okay? So when I do my ticking marks, I want them to be the width of my objects, okay? So that I can make sure that they're filling up the paper properly. So you want to look at your paper. I'm trying to make sure I've got the whole paper on my camera. And we will go from there. So I'm going to look and see where this cone is, okay? If I were to divide this into half, I would say that this cone comes a little bit more than 1/4 of the paper, okay? So I'm going to start my cone right about here, and I want it to be as wide as the cone is taking up on that half of the paper. So I'm making my ticking mark about that wide and about that far above the edge of the paper. So if I were to divide this, I'm going to put this as a guideline that's going to be erased later. That's a halfway mark for me. So if you look at that, you're going to see this sphere that's overlapping the halfway mark. You're going to see that the cylinder is just up above the bottom of the cone. I'm going to go over here. My sphere is overlapping the halfway mark, but it's just above the cylinder. And I want to make it go about 1/3 of the way into this half of the paper. So if you divided this into 3 sections, it would go about that far. Then the bottom of the cube is just below the bottom of the sphere. So your ticking mark should be about that size on your paper and arranged in the same manner. I'm about to come around and look and see how y'all are doing. But you want your ticking marks to match the width of the object, okay? So I can see that this side of the box is just a little bit off the edge of the paper. And I can see that the edge of the box is going behind the sphere. So I'm making sure that those 2 lines are overlapping a little bit. I can also see that my cylinder line is too far over right here, so I'm going to move it over. Now I'm going to pause it and I'll come around. Okay, so the WLB video showed you how to do the ticking marks at the bottom, but for me, I like to do the ticking marks of the height and how far they come over, okay? So the tallest form on my photograph is the cylinder. And I want you to look to see how far this is away from the edge of the paper. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to put a ticking mark about the same width as the bottom of my cylinder. That's the height. That's the height of my cylinder. Okay? Now, if you look at the sphere and you were to divide this cylinder into halves, your sphere is going to come to about halfway between these 2 lines, which is going to be the height of your cylinder. Okay? Okay, so that's going to be the height of your cylinder, of your sphere. And I'm going to just draw a light box where the edge of my sphere is going to be. Now the top of the corner, it's above the height of the sphere. Okay, so that's the top of the corner, and we'll go from there in a minute. And then the height of your cone is just below the height of the sphere. Okay, so I'm going to put a little ticking mark there. So you should have the ticking mark for the top of your cylinder, the ticking mark for the top of your cone, which is just below the height of the sphere, and the ticking mark for the top of the corner of this box. Okay? Okay, now we got the height of things. So I like to draw the tallest object first, which is the cylinder. And what I do is I'm very sketchy with mine. I really like how WLB Art can use that Sharpie, but I don't trust my drawing skills that well, okay? So I'm very sketchy with my drawing, and you want the top of your, you could call it an oval or an ellipse. You want the thickness on both sides to be about the same. Then you come down, you want a vertical line that appears to be parallel with the edge of the paper, okay? Parallel means that these two lines would never, ever, ever, ever cross or converge, okay? So I'm going to do the same thing with this side of the cylinder. And remember, she called this like a smile. This is going to be a curve as well, and it pretty much mimics the curve of the oval at the top, or the ellipse at the top. So I've got the basic form of my cylinder, okay? Now, I want to go ahead and do my cone. Now, I showed y'all how I did my cone yesterday. I like to have a vertical, and I'm going to put a vertical that is parallel with the edge of the paper. Remember, parallel means you can never, ever, ever, ever cross each other. So you want to make sure your objects are not leaning, okay? You want them to be standing up nice and straight. So I've got this. This is a guideline that's going to be erased. You want to make sure you have the same width on both sides for your ticking mark at the bottom. Then I'm going to connect that on both sides with a diagonal. Now I'm pretty messy with my drawing. As long as it's light, that's okay. Now I'm going to do as WLB said and put a smile on the bottom. You want the smile to be at the same height on each side. Then erase what shouldn't be there. Okay? And you can erase what shouldn't be here. All right, so your sphere. I'm moving on. Your sphere, we've already got the ticking mark for over here. And we know that it overlaps the halfway mark on the paper. And you're just going to try to draw a nice circle within that box. Now, I'm not going to lie. This box is going to be, the cube is going to be the hardest. We're going to put a diagonal. I think the bottom of my box is a little too low. This needs to come up some, my ticking mark. All right. I'm going to put this vertical right here for my cube. If you're not watching, you need to go ahead and stop what you're doing and watch this so you'll know how to do it. Okay, that's the vertical. I want it to be parallel with the edge of the paper. Then she said you're going to make a V. So I'm going to make this V. This is one side of the V. This is the other side of the V. Then the bottom V is going to mimic that. You want it to go about at the same angle, although eventually it would converge. Now, I'm going to move over a little bit and put another vertical that's not leaning, because that's going to be the corner of the box that you see in the open box. This diagonal is going to match that diagonal. This diagonal is going to match this diagonal. Then this comes straight down. This comes straight down. Okay, so those are your basic forms. Now I want you to look at this too. You can barely see this differentiation of value back here, but there's a table line in the background. I'm going to draw this table line, okay, that's right back here. I'm going to see where it hits on my cylinder. Then it's going to come right back above the cube. You want it to go across it. Then you take your eraser and you clean it up. And clean it up. If anything needs to be adjusted, that's what you do now. And then the next video will do the shading. This is what you need to have done for now.